Hello, back again. Okay, I'm going to talk on a subject called practical healing. I realise we've been talking about a lot of issues but really I really want to get into tangible, practical, something you can do to heal that's very practical. Because if it's not practical then it doesn't work. So, first of all, I'm going to talk about wounds, how they become apparent, how they happen. And so, I'm going to share a couple of wounds that I had when I was younger and how I healed and repaired them. And if I talk about the experience, then it will make more sense. Okay, so when I was 9 years old, I loved playing netball. I was wing defence, I loved it. We were in this team and we were a really good team. We had lots of great players and we were on the brink. I was only 8 or 9. I was in middle school, not lower school, not upper school, middle school. So I was kind of 8, 9, 10, 11. No, not that age. We moved up. So probably 10, 11. And we were playing this game and we were going to win the league and win the cup, and this game we were playing the other top player, the other top school, and we were playing and we were this far away from the end and we scored a goal and I went yeah, like you do when you're a kid, and the coach yelled at me, don't do that. She said, we haven't won yet. And honest to God, it was like someone had just chucked freezing cold icy water all over me. I just kind of went into a space of shock and my whole body shut down. And that looked like we went back up. I managed to get back to the wing defence position and I literally could not move. The bell went, the whistle went, they played out the last however many seconds it was, and it was all over and we'd won. And I could not even smile. I was so devastated by this feeling of whoosh. I felt, and I have healed that memory. And I can't really feel it right in this moment because I have healed it, and that's why I know I've healed it, because it's not resonating within me. But I knew my whole body shut down. I knew my whole being just sort of went woo. And that was a real moment where I felt like my spirit just got totally crushed. There was me celebrating. And obviously, I don't think I was prone to doing that willy-nilly, but we just scored a goal. I knew it was the end. I knew we were kind of this close to winning it all. And I was celebrating as everybody else were, but somehow she honed in on me and she went, don't. And I know what she was doing. She was like, don't celebrate until we've won. Don't, what's the saying? Don't, celebrate before, you've actually won. Sort of celebrating too soon. And I know she was coming from fear and probably annoyance and anger, because it's like, what are you doing that for? We could still lose. But I don't think we could lose. We were really close. I remember the scoring was close. And we probably were. It was probably, one goal. And she just, I don't know what she was thinking, but anyway, it doesn't matter what she was thinking. That's what happened. And that feeling I got was just like, it took the wind out of my sails. And in fact, the last bit of the game, I was just kind of wandering aimlessly around. I wasn't actually playing. I just didn't have any energy. It took all the energy out of me, this moment of crushing spirit, And that was a moment where I just felt so alone and so shocked. And it's that moment that I would say that was a traumatic experience. It's not what happens to you, it's what happened inside of me. There was this splitting from me and me in that moment. It was like crushing. And in that moment, I just basically, but I remember we were celebrating, I couldn't even smile. It's like every ounce of joy had gone out of that moment because of that. I was a wounded human being. Other kids might have not worried about it at all, but I was a deeply wounded kid. So maybe some of you can relate. Maybe that's not the exact same story, but you can remember when there was this moment in time that just crushed your soul and spirit to the point of just took the wind out of you. It's those moments that get stuck in our psychic bodies. Because as a child, I didn't know how to deal with that. I didn't know what to do with that. I had no idea. Do you remember the story I told you about watching that film and I cried and my sisters teased me and I remember I'm never going to cry again? Yeah? That moment on the netball. Now they're just a couple of moments, you know. But what happens is if you have lots of those moments, what in that moment I repressed, denied and rejected that wounded part of me because I didn't like the way it felt. So I didn't know how to manage it. So of course I just like rejected it, repressed it, denied it, avoided it, and tried to pretend it didn't happen because I felt, I think, a deep shame, a deep humiliation. Like I'd done something wrong, I'd been told off, I'd got into trouble, I hadn't done the right thing, and it was just so painful. As an older person, I look back on that moment and think that was still, I remember thinking about it years ago and thinking I hadn't recovered from that moment. I was still in pain. Because when I thought about it, I felt this sting inside of me, this sort of feeling that I still was holding something. And I realised that's the wounded part of me. Now, if you do that over and over again, reject, deny and avoid, see, this is why people feel fractured. They don't, we use the term wholeness because I'd left a piece of me on the netball pitch. I'd left that piece of me, that little girl that cried. And of course lots more things happened, moments where I'd rejected that experience or that part of me or that feeling. And what can we do? And this is about practical healing. So this is what I do with people in the room. And so we're going to do an experience. So obviously I want you to be in a safe space. And what I mean by that is don't do it when the kids are just about to rush in the door from school or, you've got someone coming round. Just be in a space where you can take some time for yourself and just relax. And it could be anything. See, obviously you've got your own situations, you've got your own, so I'm just going to keep an eye on the time here. You've got your own experiences, you've got your own issues to deal with. So, pick one. Pick an experience that you remember as maybe a child or even as an adult. But a bit like mine, it wasn't, it was a huge moment for me in that 9-year-old, but in the scale of think, you could go through a lot worse things, right? So don't take one thing that's huge, that's like really intense, take a lesser one that you can remember. And we're going to do an exercise. So, I want you to just flow with the flow of it. You can't get this wrong. You just got to go with it. Okay, so I want you to close your eyes and relax. And I want you to breathe in and breathe out. And with every breath, I want you to allow those breaths to bring the body down into a relaxed space. And the more you can relax, the better. If there's tension, just breathe into it and allow it and relax into that tension. I want you to close your eyes. And in your mind, we're going to ask your imagination to do all the work for us today. I want you to imagine the scenario or the situation. So what you do is you go back in time to that time. And to make this kind of even more helpful, I want you to imagine that if you're going back in time, I want you to imagine that you're standing at a bus stop, waiting for a bus. And I want you to imagine when the bus pulls up and the doors open and you step on board, you imagine that this bus is moving backwards in time through the days, months, years, decades even. And it's going to go back in time because this is not an ordinary bus, it's a magic bus. It's going to take you back into the time and the moment that this experience you had happened. You see the years whizzing by as you go backwards in time on the magic bus. The bus stops at the place and the time that the thing that happened to you happened. The doors open and you step outside. And you see the part of you in the distance that suffered that experience, suffered that situation. And what you're going to do is you're going to go and rescue that part of you and bring that part of you home with you today. So I want you to go up to the situation. And whatever the situation, if you're being bullied, I want you to stand as the adult you are now in front of that bully and tell him stop. Hold your hand up and say stop. Go. And you demand that whoever it is retreats. You turn around and you see that part of you, that very wounded, very young perhaps part of you. And I want you to walk up to that part of you and tell that part of you, I am so sorry that happened to you. That should never have happened, and you did not deserve that to happen. And what you feel is valid and true. And I'm here for you, and I love you, and I've got you. And it's over now, and you're safe. I want you to put your arms around the part of you that experienced that. And I want you to hold that part of you. I want you to hold it and caress it and gently wrap your arms around it and just whisper gently, tenderly. You have every right to feel the way you feel. What happened to you was not okay. It was not fair. You did not deserve it. And I am here for you. And I'm so sorry you had to experience that and you went through that, but I'm here now and I love you. And I'm here for you. And you're safe. And it's over now. I want you just keep repeating it, just quietly in your mind's eye. It's over now, and you're safe. And I've got you. And I've come to bring you home with me today. And everything's going to be okay. And as the child, you feel those warm arms around you. You feel that the arms and the words that are being whispered enter into your mind, your body, and your heart. And that part of you that went through that starts to feel safe, calm, peaceful, relaxed. Just be curious and notice what's happening as you have this experience today. And in your mind's eye, imagine that you and that part of you are in a safe space. Wherever that is, you create it. And the grown-up part of you, the adult part of you, holds that wounded part of you so gently, so tenderly, whispering words of love and affection. And I just want you to spend some time in this moment of healing. And while you're doing this, I want you to breathe in and breathe out. And tell that wounded part of you everything is as needed to hear, that it wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You're not to blame. And everything's going to be okay. Because I love you and I'm here for you and you're safe now and it's over. after what feels like a very long time, you notice that part of you that was wounded way back then has started to feel calmer, safer, more relaxed. I want you to imagine that part of you turns into a very small child, maybe even a baby, something very small and vulnerable, and you hold that part of you gently and tell you, and you hold it close and you whisper, I love you and I'm here for you, and you're safe now. I want you to breathe in and with every deep breath, I want you to imagine that child, that little person, move slowly back inside of you, and the two of you become one once again. And when the two of you are completely integrated into each other, I want you to open your eyes, look around where you are, and we're going to walk back to that bus together. And so we walk back to where the bus drops us off, and we get back on the bus, and we see the past moving away and the future coming towards us as all the months and days and weeks and maybe decades roll on past the window as the bus moves back into the present day. It propels us forward back into the presence of this moment, of this day, of this age. And when the bus arrives at this moment that you're at, you climb outside the bus and you are where you are living right now, and you walk up the path and in through the front door and sit down in the chair that maybe you're sitting in right now, back into the moment where it all began. But you went and retrieved that part of you. You went and brought that part of you home. You went and rescued that part of you that was stuck in that moment. And breathe in and breathe out as you slowly come back to the room. You come back to this moment. You come back to the video. And maybe you open your eyes and you recognize you're back inside the room that you were in just a few moments before. And just notice how you feel. Notice what sensations. Look back at the experience. What was going through your mind? What were you thinking and feeling? What did you see in your imagination? Was it helpful? Was it healing? What happened? Just reflect on the whole experience. Maybe you could write it down or tell someone about it, or maybe even write a comment at the end of this video and tell me what happened. I would love to hear what happened. You see, this is practical healing. This is about you recognizing that there are moments in time, just like I had, where I disconnected and I created trauma within me that left me stuck, or that part of me stuck. And you can retrieve every moment where you felt alone and afraid. You don't have to go and relive the situation that happened. You just go in, you see that part of you. You put your hand up and stop whatever was happening, and you see the part of you that felt wounded, stuck. And for me, when I did that, I saw the part of me that felt so crushed by what that coach had said and done. And I spoke to me just like I told you to speak to you. And I brought her home and healed her, because that part of me felt like it was still happening. And that's why I felt, oh, don't get too happy. Don't you cry. I was hypervigilant. I was ashamed. I didn't ever want to be ashamed again. I felt shame and I didn't want to feel that way again. So I was like, don't get too happy. Don't celebrate too hard. Don't cry. All these things will impact us in the now. And I healed that moment. And I don't know about you, but I had lots of moments where, and it happened, once you understand how this works and you can do it, you can actually go into your imagination and go do that. That part of you that felt so lonely and afraid. And now maybe there's been lots of times, but once you start going into one or two of them, you find it knocks all the others off. And this is how the healing can happen. Why don't you just give it a go and see what happens? What harm could it do? I mean, you don't have to get in the bus and go all the way there. Sometimes that just helps you go back into that moment, that's all. And if you go back in the bus, it's important that you get back on the bus and come back to the now. But you could just maybe think of a thought, a memory, and go in there. And what did that little girl, boy need to hear in that moment? What did that little boy... I'm to blame. I'm egocentric, so it must be my fault. I'm a terrible person. I should never have done that. I did the wrong thing. No, you didn't. You were I was celebrating. I was crying because I was sad. There's nothing wrong with that. That's normal feelings, normal behaviour, normal responses. I was happy, so I cheered. These things impact us and have consequences. And people don't. She didn't realise what she was doing. And I could blame her and call her a terrible person, but she was actually a lovely lady. And she was a wonderful coach. And she did a lot of... She was always very kind and loving to me. Always. And that was just a moment. She wasn't like she did that all the time, because certainly she did not. And I think that's why it was always... That's why it was a bit of a shock to me as well, because she wasn't normally like that. But she wanted us to win. She'd worked very hard to get us to where we were in the team, and that was a big memory for me. But that's 8, 9, 10, 11. That's when you start remembering this stuff. Prior to that, you don't remember it, but you can still go back to what you imagine that wounded part of you might look like. I mean, I have this picture of myself that I look at when I want to remind myself. Now, I can't remember being that age, but I can remember me. And sometimes I will go to that part of me and just be with her. And just be with her and tell her it's okay to be you. I love you. Doesn't matter what. Even if you're angry, sad, or you don't want to talk to me, I still love you. I'm here for you, and everything's going to be okay. I tell her the things I needed to hear, but I didn't hear. I spend time with her. I pay attention to her. I listen to her. And this doesn't take up a lot of the day. This doesn't take up any time at all. This is just sort of imagination, when you're in bed or waking up. And at times when you're struggling, at times when you feel sad, I'll go to her and just spend some time with her. It's just spending a time with that aspect of me, my emotional self. And I liken it to a child, because then I'm much more likely to have nurturing, empathic feelings towards her. So that's why we use the child metaphor. We child the inner child theory, because I think it helps you nurture and love that part of you. Now, I know this might not be for you, not be for everyone, but hey, why don't you give it a go? See what happens. Experimental. Be experimental. Just experiment. What's the worst thing that can happen? Give it a go. Maybe there's one moment in time where you just, I remember that time when my teacher did this, or my parent did that, or this person did that, and I just felt terrible, just like I did. I'm sure there's lots of moments. And just see what happens. Because as you retrieve, because we reject, deny and avoid right? So we leave those parts back because energy doesn't dissipate, it's still there. And this is why we feel this way. So go and reclaim those parts of you, bring them home, rescue those parts of you, rescue yourself. This is your inner work. And then just see what happens. Sometimes nothing happens, you don't feel anything, but maybe a week later you feel a little bit calmer, a little bit more relaxed. Don't get so triggered, which was what the last video was about. You see, this is the practical element of what we were talking about in the last video about triggers. Well, how do I heal them triggers? Well, this is how. You realise they're triggers, that there's a moment in time that you were wounded, and it might be a one-off, it might be systematic wounding, but go back to that part of you and bring them home. If you're watching this, then maybe this is what you needed to hear today. Maybe if you clicked onto this and it's come up on your feed, maybe this is what you needed to hear. Maybe this is what you're yearning, because this is very practical. I'm not sure, I mean, a lot of what I've studied and I've brought together and I practice is kind of eclectic from all what I've learned and been taught. And, this is what I've learned that can be really helpful. But I realise it's not for everyone. But if you clicked onto this video, maybe it's for you. Give it a go. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Please share your experiences in the comments. Share with other people what happened to you when you did that exercise. Bye for now. You take care.